All right, what's going on, guys? Thanks for picking and clicking Bad Publicity. Is that
We back.
is that a good catch line?
Yeah, pick it and click it. I'm okay with it. It works.
You found this. You found this. Um, so you might have enjoyed two Marvel episodes already, and this is the official kickoff. So we're kind of aiming for those people that are would like to join us weekly. We're trying to aim for 9 o'clock Eastern time on Tuesdays to do these live kind of chats, old school like we used to. So join in. We're not really going to be pushing them out too crazily across social medias or Reddits or all that stuff. If you follow us on Facebook and Twitter, you should be able to get some updates until we get a good base kind of built up and content starts rolling. But we just want to kind of set some groundwork and foundations here. So Jameson and Corey back again.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
A long time. So
Shouldn't have left.
I know. I came back from my misadventures in Rokugan. And I've returned this time in the Marvel universe.
So let's go first off the bat. We have to say we can close our contest. I have reached out, so we have a couple days that there's a like on the post that won. Put it in the random number generator thing, lined everybody up, spun it, and that's what we have. So you have, you're the lucky winner there with that post like. Give us an email, at badpublicityproduction@gmail.com. Get in touch with us, send us your address, and from that point, you have 3 days to claim it. If we don't hear anything from you, we'll just go and randomly repick again. But as of right now, no more entries are in the contest. That is closed. Thank you, everyone, for playing, for joining along, and thank you, FFG, for sending that Corset along so we could give it out. Corey,
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Hey, it's me.
Yeah, so let's talk. This week we're just going to talk impressions on the Corset. So what's your thoughts here? You had a little bit more of exposure to Marvel Champions than I did, because you were there for the Gen Con kind of launch when it was going down, when they were fire hosing all the
The masses.
Yeah.
It was getting crazy over there. Yeah, they definitely caught a lot of people off guard with their Marvel announcement. It was definitely one of those unexpected. Didn't see that coming from FFG. So good on them for being able to surprise us again. I'll be honest, my initial impressions of the game, the way they had the demo tables and everything set up, was initially kind of lukewarm, meh, but it looked like that they really watered down some of the gameplay or scenarios to be able to do really fast demos for people who are checking it out. So kind of looking over and watching some of the gameplay, I don't feel like I got the full experience of seeing everything the game had to offer when I was at Gen Con. It wasn't until later, when we got closer and closer to the launch date, I did some more research on the game, really wanting to get back into a co-op, since I was kind of way behind on Arkham and light years behind in Lord of the Rings. I just wanted to see if I could maybe make this work. And then as I read more and dug into it, there was a lot of depth and really cool mechanics and things that I just didn't see, or wasn't really being explained all that well at the demo tables. And that's not really a fault on them as much as it's just, it's a brand new product. They're just trying to showcase some of what it has to offer to thousands upon thousands of people in a short period of time. So, but yeah, it was cool. I was pretty excited and was ready to dive in once it launched.
Yeah, sometimes, my Gen Con experience when trying new games out, it's weird, right? They cram, and not just FFG, I'm talking about Gen Con in general, right? You wait around these booths, you try and get a peek at the latest stuff, you get crammed in a game table with maybe people of different experience, or you not everyone at the table is a buddy that you came with, and you just get explained and rushed, and they just want to cycle as many people through as they can, because it's a demo, and they want people to go and get hyped for it, right? So
yeah,
I
and
can
one
see
thing that yeah, and FFG has lines everywhere. Lines. It's just so. Especially, I can understand what it feels like to be a person at those tables, and there's just like a list of people like waiting to also try it, and people are all like looking over your shoulder. So you're performing in a sense. You're sitting there trying to create that experience, and you have a lot of eyes watching you. So it can be a little nerve wracking, and I get that. I understand.
Yeah. So. I was surprised. My initial impression is I was very excited when they were able to obtain a Marvel license, and I tried not to dive too much into it. Kind of talked to a couple buddies and seeing if they were going to, get it or pick it up. Or this wasn't something I was going to jump in solo. I wasn't going to be playing Marvel Champions solely myself. So if there was no player base for me to support it here, I was not going to be able to continue with it. Lucky I had some diehard Marvels that said, yep, picking it up no matter what. So I kind of read some of the buzz, saw how things kind of worked with the first couple introductory articles at FFG, the talk, the in-flight report, and then from there I was just going to wait for the game to come out. So that way my impressions and stuff like that weren't diluted from a lot of the hype or podcasts or other kind of streams. I with it being a co-op game, I wanted to experience, make my own judgment calls out of the box, because I mean there is a couple little, I guess spoiler alert, the scenarios do tie together, right? So I didn't want to be surprised, or I didn't want to be playing the game and be like, oh, I know when we get to the next don't
flip that card.
Yeah. When it flips over, or when this villain's gonna come out, because this is how the introductory build is. I'm gonna be prepared for it, right? So I wanted to just experience it from that perspective. I didn't want it the experience kind of spoiled for me.
Yeah, and you have a little bit of experience with FFG games, so it wasn't like you were going into it blind. You played a couple of them in your heyday.
What was your so you get, we both get this. What's your experience or your take on the mechanics that were used in this game? Were you surprised they went with this take? I mean, it seems like they've kind of borrowed pieces from the whole spectrum of FFG card games, right?
Yeah, and I think I guess the elevator pitch or rough impressions was it felt like a very fine-tuned Sentinels of the Multiverse. It was the old superhero co-op I used to play a bunch with friends way back in the day. So I was kind of hoping to get that type of experience. That was a fun game, but it's kind of dated now, so maybe I can get something faster. And there was just some really clever stuff. I assumed they were going to borrow things like weaknesses and the negative type stuff you'll get with some of the other games. But the way they incorporated it with the hero, with both the nemesis and the obligation, and then you have both sides, the alter ego and the regular hero, I think creates a lot of really interesting decisions in the game that I really enjoyed and really dug.
Yeah, honestly, I was very surprised myself too that they went with this kind of format for the game, but it did turn out to be very enjoyable. And what I like by that is I wanted I wanted a couple layers of depth in the game, from the perspective of, if you look at Arkham Horror, right, you got your first perspective is the deck building itself. The second perspective is the theme and the campaign that you're playing, and then you're kind of little bit of that dungeon crawl aspect, right? So when they didn't have that dungeon crawl stuff, I was like, well, how else are they going to build the thematic stuff rather than me just fighting this one bad guy? Right. So it does have that thematic play with the scheme that's in play. So I was very, very hesitant at first to be just oh, it's just going to be I build a deck, you build a deck, and let's just go thump this guy. But it does have depth, right? And I'm very sure the way that Fantasy Flight has worked in the past is that you know, this is only the tip of the iceberg. Like things, mechanics, and more complications, and you know, various challenges will come in those expansion packs as people go down this rabbit hole with this game.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, they definitely did that a lot with like Arkham, where you looked at like your starting scenarios, and then as packs came out, you know, like take an example, like the one that was like, I think it was like the festival or the parade, and like how you interacted with the board was really clever. So just seeing them taking all these things they learned between like Lord of the Rings and Arkham, they now have like a lot of experience going into Marvel with some really cool things they can do. And we're already seeing this a little bit with like the way the Green Goblin interacts a little differently of how you deal with him, because he has an alter ego and bounces. And then the Wrecking Crew coming up early next year, where it's multiple villains you have to fight at one time. So it adds some different aspect of like who to target and how to play that out. So it's really cool. Lots of neat stuff they've got coming down the pipe.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's just gonna be straight like, here's a boss, fight him.
Right. Yeah, and that's great, because I mean and another thing that's like really cool is just how the module system works, right? Because that's, again, I haven't played Arkham in a while, so I don't know if they've added anything similar where it's very modular, where you can kind of change out like different parts of the deck where you're playing the same scenario with different like baddies and stuff inside of it. But the module seems to give you a ton of variety, so you can play like Rhino, but technically between like expert and the 5 modules, you have many different variations on Rhino and how he can play against you and your group. And so it gives you a lot of flexibility with those scenarios. And then as more villains come out, you get more modules, and those modules seem interchangeable with your old villains. So even getting a pack may give you a lot of replayability with that villain, but you can also take some of those modules and throw them into your older ones and then change those up a bunch as well. So that's pretty sweet.
Oh, I fully agree. I was blown away by the level of replayability that I'm actually getting from this game right now.
Yeah.
Exactly like you said, mix and matching the bad guy modules. I feel that every game has been... I mean, I know if you only play one hero and you gravitate towards one hero, well, then your build is going to be the same. But even if I was playing one hero, one build over and over and over, like, every game is fully different. I mean, there's sometimes that I don't see my nemesis, and there's sometimes that my nemesis comes out. And I mean, like, after you play each hero on its 1 and its 2 level, you know, elevating that, how they've built in this level of expert mode, and you can go 2 and 3, and there's the mastery cards and, you know, different sets. And I just think that everyone is so cool. And then obviously the way that you build, the way that, you know, I play my deck, and then say, you know, you come to the table and you have a different build. Well, now we have to work together because to get that synergy. I'm really digging it, and like I said, I'm playing about, you know, at minimum probably 3 games a week since it's been officially released to the masses.
Yeah, I've stayed pretty consistent with that, and even now and then too, I'll do like a random solo game if I just get like an idea of something I want to tweak or try out, or just wondering how something will interact with a module. I'll have some free time, pull the cards out, and just give it a go and just see how it happens. Sometimes you'll get really challenging in-depth games. Sometimes you'll flip your nemesis right into MODOK and you scoop your cards really fast and you go about your day. So it's great.
So for me, I think that's definitely some of the stuff that's working for me in this game off my initial impressions. I mean, like we said, obviously we like it or we wouldn't have rebooted this cast. So, but I tell you though that it does have some... I'm not going to say some negatives on it, but there are some anchors that are weighing it down.
Some weaknesses,
yeah.
Some areas of improvement.
I don't know if it can be fully improved or if it's just going to have to wait in time for me to get options. So like we said, the flexibility here and the level of replayability, I think, is really working for me. You know, what I find is not working for me is I just need more cards right now, man. I hate to say it, but I feel like because I'm that level of gamer and I'm going that deep into this, you know, this ecosystem and game, the deck building is very much, and like I said it before when Michael was on, I feel like I'm just taking Lego bricks and sticking them together, right? Like right now,
Yeah.
Hey, you want to be Black Panther? Well, here's automatically half the cards that you're going to use. Then you can only pick from one pool of, an aspect. So if I want to be Leadership Panther, well, after I put all of the leadership cards in, it's almost like usually all of the cards except for one card from the aspect set that's left over. Depends if you play with 3 copies or 2 copies. Then you fill it with a bunch of pretty strong and probably staple the basics that you're gonna see through every freaking deck. Like what are we talking about? I got I made some notes here.
Well,
I mean, like I said, like Avengers Mansion, the Helicarrier we talked about before. Obviously, you're gonna have Energy Genius Strength in there for your resource management. You're already seeing, if you need an ally, it's usually either Mockingbird or Nick Fury to level it out from these basics. But the basics are just pretty strong and they're pretty stapled throughout. So I think from that perspective, I'm like, I'm just not feeling the deck building at this point.
Yeah, your main decision is this, like either one version of the card is like getting cut, or your master deck building is like, I'll play with only 2 copies of this and 2 copies of this, and that's that's like what you're deciding. It's 2 or 3 copies of something, or just one card gets cut altogether and you don't like, and that's it. The depth's not quite there yet, but I guess this might have been kind of the sacrifice we make to not have to buy 3 copies of the core set. So I guess I'll take it, and hopefully they get on their schedule and we start seeing that new content every month, and then we start seeing that influx of new stuff. We can kind of mix and match it up a little bit.
Yeah. Anything from your perspective that you're seeing that is either, like I said, not a huge weakness, but just something that's grinding your gears at the moment?
grinding my gears. I mean, I think someone just maybe like templating. It's always kind of been like a weak point of some FFG stuff, where some of the ways they word cards could be better. The rules reference guide helps to a point. I have found there's been some things where I found clarification like in the rule book that's not on the rules reference guide. I remember I was like clearing up a rule with somebody about something with the timing, and the actual answer is in the learn the play, and it's not clarified under the topic on the rules reference. Just the small stuff like that, and that's like super nitpicky. Like, I'll be honest, that's just like, oh well, they could do this better. Aside from that, I'm kind of with you a little bit on the deck building being like a little basic right now. And something else is just wondering if and when they're going to do a campaign style system. Like Arkham, you get the cards that are like advanced, improved versions as you play through a story. Obviously, since you're going to get a lower card pool because of the way they did the starter set, they don't have room to do all that in the core set. But we haven't really heard anything, I think, concrete on if they plan to do like a progression style campaign with the cards where you can improve things, or even if that's really needed. Like, there could be a chance that maybe this game doesn't need that type of play. It just needs like really good story-based campaign, and then you can just play that same deck throughout. So we'll see. That's one of those that's like, are they going to do it? Would it be better for the game? Would the game just be fine the way it is, just with like a really nice like story-driven campaign sessions instead of just one-off villains? So yeah, we'll see.
I fully agree. To hit on some other points there, and not to keep hammering on the negatives. But, I mean, I want I think it's important that people know that we're not just these guys that come from a background of FFG fanboys, and we're not just
right.
We're going to represent.
It's perfect. There's nothing wrong with this game.
Bad publicity is about the people. Also, right. As people come in chat, we want to keep things here very interactive. So we are monitoring stuff. If you guys have your own questions or comments, throw them up there.
Yeah, lay 'em on us.
Yeah, we're not just reading from a script.
Oh, we're not. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Actually, yeah,
Just
it's
kidding.
quite the opposite. We just go on the fly. Totally with the templating thing, and the you hit it indirectly when you said like I remember looking that keyword up forever on the card.
Yeah.
Does it mean me? Does it mean like my allies, my players? Like, what does it mean by you? And we had to kind of go to the internet. My group had to, or I think someone was like, oh, we were watching I don't know if it was Covenant or something like that, and they're like, they cleaned it up in there. Or I coming from a card game background, I'm trying to wash away and be neutral and be that kind of live in this game and let this game kind of dictate its own rule set. I don't want everything to go to that Magic the Gathering juggernaut and start talking about, well, it's the action stack and
Right.
and about how remember Netrunner, when Netrunner started and like the flow chart or the timing was like this big, and then by the time the game concluded it was like we had like a list of timings and everything, and interrupts and when you could do stuff and off turn stuff, right? But I don't know if it needs some kind of weird. I've had some issues with a little bit of timing when things affect and when things go, but other than that, I think it's just house rules, kind of clean it up and doing that. But
Yeah, and hopefully they get a little bit. I mean, it seems like they're doing okay with it so far, but just being really active on revising the reference guide, like having that living document where they're really big about doing clarifications of stuff for new players. Because you got to think, the way they're trying to target this, for some people, this is going to be their first game, right? Or their first experience maybe with an LCG. And you don't want them to get any bogged down with any like rules discrepancies or anything like that. You want to try to make the product as smooth as possible for them to take out of the box and play.
That's what Alan was just saying in the chat. Sometimes too much templating can be that barrier for a new player. So I think that's if we swing it, that's one of the pluses. They did make this game very accessible to somebody who has no Marvel knowledge, I would say, too. I mean, the Marvel sells it, but I think it's very easy for a non-Marvel fan, somebody who's just kind of like living in this FFG world, and okay, what is the next universe they're LCGing? Oh, this one, okay. I'll give it a try. But I think the game plays very, very easy and very, very quick setup time, very easy to deck build with that perspective of new players. Like I said, the Lego bricks, click, click, click. There's your deck.
Right, you're ready to go.
Even the way they presented it, like here's all the heroes, here's out of the box decks, here's starter decks, here's your starter hero all wrapped up. I think it's very well presented from an entry level perspective.
Yeah, and I feel they do a good job too on. I know they may not be like the most exciting, but the way they did the villains and the way that their difficulty progresses. Because Rhino is like very basic. He's really just trying to punch and knock out all the heroes. He has one scheme. And then you move into Claw, and then Claw has a 2-part scheme with more minions and things to interact with. And then you get up, as you move up to Ultron, and then Ultron now has like an environment rule, multi-levels in his schemes, and more depth to kind of play with. And so I feel like they did a good job on how they escalated the villains and everything in the core set.
Yeah, and you know what else? I guess another plus for me was looking at theme and mechanic. Right? Like coming from somebody, like I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm a Marvel Universe scholar.
Right. Well,
right.
Yeah.
Well, like I have a buddy of mine that like you name a character and he'll tell you the very first appearance of that character. He will tell you every story. He will he just knows his shit, right? Like from that perspective of things, he can pick apart all of the where they've deviated from storyline, from the comic books to the movies to however big the canon is. This guy has drank all of the Kool-Aid for it. But for me, You know, I would say I'm not super or uber Marvel level, but
Are
I'm up there. I'm underneath. But
are you like a step above cinematic universe knowledge?
yes,
So okay, gotcha.
right, yeah, quite a few steps above cinematic
Okay,
universe knowledge, right?
cool.
But the theme and how they've tied in the mechanics and stuff like that are really, really good.
Yeah, I'll mention it tons of times, but I love the interaction with alter ego hero. It's just one of my favorite like thought processes of the game of when I can take the actions I can take on what side, and then how I choose to end my turn is super important to kind of like where the rest of the table is going to be, how your main scheme's looking. You know, there's just a lot of really good like thought put in to that mechanic of the game, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and in every hero plays so differently, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it gives you that hope that that when they release these other expansions and these heroes that they're not going to be like, you know, so tightly knitted together that you start to, you know, see that bleed.
Yeah,
Right, like I don't want to talk about what's coming more, but just dealing with the core set, right? Like Iron Man is going to play different than Spider-Man is playing different than She-Hulk, and even when you put the aspects into their deck, they are going to add that level of flavor to just change up that playstyle a minuscule bit to keep it fresh.
hmm
So I love it. I love the way that Black Panther you know, plays. I love the thematics behind building Iron Man and the suit and how his hit points grow and when you get the pieces together. You know, She-Hulk is right now out of the core set that just you know, turnover damage kind of, you know, player. Just
yeah.
phenomenal character development to mechanic right now.
Yeah, it's really sweet. There's a lot of really cool depth to play with, and again, like there's a good bit of that just in the core set alone. But as we started locking more and more cards, there's going to be more things for you to play with these characters. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that.
I will say, going back to the negatives, touched on this in the previous episode. I love how it plays 2-player.
Yeah.
I love playing it 3-player.
Oh, here it goes.
I would say so. So two is my good. You know, two to
Mhm.
three that's my sweet kind of seesaw spoil, or level. Then I can play it solo. I haven't really had a good experience playing 4 players.
Yeah. I would say that probably my first like great 4-player experience was actually last weekend, where there was this 4 of us who showed up, and so we didn't want to leave anyone out, so we all threw together and did a big game. But it was a lot of experienced people, like some of our regular groups, so we were all familiar with each other, and we kind of kept the game moving. And I think that's so important for a 4-player game, because the biggest thing that could hurt it is this downtime. Like if you go last in the round or you go first in the round, um, to still stay engaged with the game and pay attention to what's going on. Because it can be easy to kind of check out a little bit and not communicate. And then you make mistakes, like people don't realize you're ending an alter ego, and so they don't plan for an extra scheme. Or, you know, maybe you have a card that you could set up someone later down the road, but you don't really mention anything about it. So it's just like good etiquette gameplay. But sometimes it can be hard when you're playing in like a really tense or just back and forth 4-player. Just because how it bounces around. I do agree with you. I think like 3 is like right on the money. It's like the good count, and I also do really enjoy it as a solo game. Just because it's just easy to throw down and set up and just grind it out.
Yeah, like for me as well, I find that too. You know, your the way that the turn structure works, and when you refill your hands before the villain phase.
Yeah.
You know, so things are happening and it can adjust your turn. But yeah, I don't know if it's just every time I've played 4 players, there's been somebody new at the table. So I haven't really had an enjoyable 4-player experience yet.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that will change, but I do find that there's, you know, there's somebody sitting there with the blinders on. They're like, I've drawn this hand, and I'm going to play this hand the way that I am going to play it, rather than looking at, you know, their tableau that they're building and what cards they can do to help somebody across the table that, you know, maybe you're not doing the most optimal play to help the team because you're just playing siloed at that point. It's like, I'm just going to I'm going to roll the dice and take my turn, and then you're going to roll the dice and take your turn. I'm going to roll the dice and take my turn. You know, I find there really has to be at that 4-player mark, because the game levels up.
Yeah, it does.
So crazy.
I mean, even just one extra treachery card every round sucks. It's not fun.
Well, I just even mean like the starting health that a hero or that a villain's gonna get. Like, you know, you're putting like, you know, 66 or, you know, huge layers of health on these guys, and if you're not working as a team at that point, yes, it's scaled proportionally to player count, but it's still damn hard, you know, if you have one person that is just doing their thing, and, you know, maybe you're getting swarmed with minions, or, you know, maybe the scheme's building up, and you don't have that one person that, hey, you potentially could knock it down, but, you know, like, oh, you've put Nick Fury down, and instead of removing or thwarting, you've now used it to draw 3 cards because you just need some resources to get out your helmet or something, right? Like,
or you're just looking and you're like, yeah, we've got a scheme that's adding a treachery card. I'm gonna reshuffle this turn. It'd be really cool if you don't repulsor blast with only 7 cards left in your deck. I would really appreciate you not doing that right now.
So we have a question came up in chat.
Cool.
You know, so somebody that wasn't aware of this of Marvel Champions. So, you know, I'm glad that we could be the people to, you know, to turn you on to this game and you know, open it up a bit. Saying, you know, is it like Sentinels of the Multiverse? Corey, you touched on that a little bit, saying it's a more fine-tuned.
So I guess like my pitch for people who played Sentinels, imagine Sentinels where like your superhero deck you can actually customize and tweak it to your own. So you have like the base cards that it has to play with that are unique to that hero, but you get some spots you can play with and kind of customize it. And then the way like the villain, the environment, and everything like that is very streamlined. In Sentinels, you had like these different decks you had to monitor and all this stuff. Champions does a really good job of just streamlining it all, kind of running out of a single deck, in essence. Yeah. So it's just much easier to set up and much easier to play than Sentinels is.
And then, you know, this leads into another point of something that they've done really, really good to keep this game kind of going from a longevity perspective. The next question was, they said they're just scared they're going to spam us with cards every month. Is there breathing room to collect? So what I really, really like about this game is there is such... there's entry points all along. There's entry and obviously exit points where... the system they're doing is every month they're either releasing a hero or a villain, or
they'll do like a campaign box, which is something that they've announced,
or a larger campaign box. So that's kind of on cycle. But the thing is when you buy at any one point, like if you don't have the core set and the next pack in the series, if it's Captain America, and you just want to go out and I just want to play Captain America. Well, when you buy that pack, it is a complete set and a complete deck to just jump in the game and play as, you know, Captain America. So all of the Captain cards are in there. Some new cards are added in to flush it out with a predefined aspect. And from there, you know, you just link up and play with somebody that has the core set. Or from that perspective, if you don't want to buy the Captain America pack because you're like, I don't like this hero, then you don't need to buy him.
Right.
This is a cooperative game. It's not competitive. So the only thing you're doing is defining your playstyle. It's not like Netrunner, Game of Thrones, where if you don't get that pack for that one card to put in your deck, then you're going to be so far behind. No, it doesn't work like that at all. It's you just buy, honestly, what you want. You can buy the Corset. The Corset comes with, if you're familiar with Fantasy Flight, in the past you've had to buy multiple Corsets to get full playsets of everything. This Corset box comes with everything you need to be able to play with, multiple players even, and full competitive decks. And in that box, and there's 3 villains that you can fight. So you are getting a lot of bang for your buck out of this
out of the set
already. And if that's what you're happy with, like I said, when Captain America comes out, you don't have to buy Cap. When Miss Marvel comes out, you don't have to get that one. But then when you're ready to take on, if you've beat Rhino, Claw, Ultron, and beat them all on hard level, mediums, hard or easy, whatever the terms are, then you can be like, okay, I'm ready to go out and get the Green Goblin. Or one of your friends went out to play the Green Goblin, and like, you don't need every pack in this game. And I think that's genius the way they've done that.
Yeah, because if you have like no interest in like fighting the Green Goblin, he's a villain that doesn't interest you, you don't necessarily have to go buy him. But they do give you some incentive for the pack, because not only do you get the Green Goblin, it'll usually come with modules that you can use to customize your older villains, so you can get that little bit of replayability, but you don't have to have it. And the other cool thing is, as Jameson mentioned too, with it being a cooperative game, if you have a play group that you can kind of get on a regular basis of people that you meet up and play with, you don't have to have one person buy everything too. Like, if one person really wants to get Captain America, they can get Captain America, and then you can kind of have like a collective pool of cards that you build decks from to do it. Or you can have like one person who just wants to collect everything, and he can be in charge of help making decks for the rest of their friends and everything. So you just get a group that meets up and throws down in the game. So
yeah, and I really feel like the level we're at right now, it's not overwhelming. The way, like we said, the way that the deck building is done, it's very much like open the box and go.
Yeah. And to go back on the releases, like, the idea is them to do kind of like one pack of some sort a month. This month's a little weird because later they are going to be like dumping 3 packs, but the reason why they're doing that is because they had shipping delays, because there should have been stuff already coming out for this game, and they just are trying to catch up on schedule and to help people who have had the game since launch who kind of want some new content. So that's not going to be the norm. Like, you're not going to normally see them just like spam a bunch of packs on you at one time. It's going to be just a steady, slow drip.
Another question is, will there be one version of Cap, or are they going to have different versions? I believe that they, through Fantasy Flight keeps spoilers pretty close to their chest. But I believe the way they've kind of hinted is there'll probably be different versions of the heroes once they've kind of gone through a bigger pool of them. Like, obviously they're playing in the whole Marvel universe, so it's not like, there's 5 heroes in the core box, and they've already announced Captain America, Miss Marvel, and Thor, loving Thor. So I don't think that you're going to see one of those repeated so quickly again. So
and just sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so there's definitely like some time that you have to wait to probably see something else.
And what you're also likely to see is some of the decks, like for example in Aggression, one of the ally cards you can get is the Hulk. There's also the chance that you might see the Hulk as a full-fledged character. And so some of the allies may get full decks, and then maybe some of the full deck characters, like maybe down the road She-Hulk becomes an ally you can put in the deck. So you can have her as an ally, or someone could play her as a full-fledged character. And they did state, I believe in the book, that their unique rule isn't on the hero name. It's on the... Maybe I'm crossing this with the other Marvel game. No, maybe they are going to do it unique, but I do see them possibly doing like new versions of like different heroes down the road.
Yeah.
So
there definitely be multiple cards that are of the same character. How they exist in the game is going to be flushed out at a later date.
Yeah. They do have a unique rule in the game, though. So if one person, say, has the Hulk in their deck and they play it, and you have the Hulk in your deck, you can't play it until their Hulk leaves the board. So they do kind of follow a little bit of like there's one version of that hero running around somewhere amongst all the players. So yeah, I could see them playing without a bunch down the road. But as far as a definite answer, we don't have one yet. Seems very likely. In some form or fashion, they may mix up or do special versions.
Yeah, because again, they really keep spoilers close to their chest, right? So they haven't talked about releasing Hulk as a playable hero.
Yeah.
Do all hero decks have the same amount of cards?
Yeah, I think every hero, it's like 15 or 16 set cards for that hero. And then all the decks have to be at least 40 cards, or they have to be exactly 40 cards. I know.
Minimum 40.
Minimum 40. Okay. So something like that. But there's like some general themes in deck building between everybody. Now, that doesn't mean that there could be a hero that comes out that doesn't break that rule. There could be a hero down the road that maybe doesn't have as many set cards and gets a lot more flexibility with deck building. Or maybe they release a hero later on where a lot of the deck is pre-constructed, locked-in cards. You don't get so much flexibility on how you build them. So, again, that's kind of just some design space they could play around with. But currently, it's pretty consistent. They'll have a number of kind of specific cards that only that hero gets to play.
So Bob says the unique applies to the title of the card, not the subtitle. So you could have Peter Parker Spider-Man and then Miles Morales Spider-Man.
There we go. Cool. Sorry, I also on the side play a lot of Crisis Protocol, and in Crisis Protocol they have a uniqueness for the alter ego, for like the actual person, like the alter ego, and so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't confusing the rules between the two games. So thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Corey, anything else that has really impressed you?
I mean, I feel like we kind of covered a lot. I mean, my biggest thing is, I mentioned it a bunch, but I've really enjoyed this also as a solo game, and I feel like that's a hard thing to have to keep you like really engaged and involved in the game. But I feel like even with solo, the game creates a lot of really interesting decisions and really good strategy, and it balances really well. It doesn't feel like it just like overwhelms and crushes you. It's hard. It's not easy. But it's definitely a playable game. So if you're that type of person that maybe you don't have a regular play group you can meet up all the time, but the idea of the game really interests you, it is a really good solo experience out of the box. So it is an option of something if you're considering or looking at the game.
I fully agree. And what was strange to me is that, if you've ever played, played a game, like let's just say a bigger card game, if you are, or a bigger board game, if you play Arkham Horror solo or something like that, it's, your character is your character, and the way that you play is only going to change so much. But I find this game to be drastically different between when you play solo and when you play with a group. So like layering that layer of replayability into it, right? And I mean, some hero builds you just can't build the same deck, right? Like Iron Man, when you play with 2 players, when you play with 3 players, you're gonna have some padded turns in there to get set up. But Iron Man solo,
you don't necessarily have that padding. Yeah, he's gotta get going. But that's where part of like a lot of the really cool strategy comes in, and some aspects really shine. Like, of course, like I love playing the leadership aspect on solo because you get extra allies and things to play with that some of the other decks don't have. But again, there's some different cool like deck building. Like you can have a deck tuned just for solo play that's built different, and you play it different than the same style of deck if you took it to a game with like 2 to 3 other people. There's just a lot of variety in the game, and it's really cool. And that's, again, just in the core set. So who knows where we'll be like 6 months to a year from now when we get a bunch more content for the game of all the cool things you'll be able to do within this universe and this game system.
Corey, you want to talk? We've had some comments come in there about asking more about solo play. So you want to kind of elaborate a little more on that? So you are only playing one hero. You're still only building one deck.
Correct.
If you want additional heroes, you can play the leadership aspect and then bring out additional heroes, to complement your stuff. But you're essentially, the way that it scales is if you have experience with Arkham Horror or if you don't, what you're looking for is different like health setups or how much scheme is placed out. For that scheme is that like internal game timer, to kind of push the game along. So you can't.
It's their master plan, right? They're trying to fulfill.
You can't just sit there and kind of, build your tableau in front of you. You really have to, you really have to challenge yourself to flip into hero mode and start fighting this guy. But yeah, you're only going with one deck and then going through.
Yeah, and in a way it does a lot of the balance is, Jameson mentioned this earlier, is the villain health is determined by the number of players in the game. The amount of treachery cards you flip is by the number of players. The amount of kind of markers that go on the scheme is also determined by the number of players. So kind of like the ramp will be a little bit slower, but it feels in line with what it should be. So they have different things that like measure up and change based on just being one player in the game. So it helps to balance out really well.
Yeah, and then like Alan said too in the comments, setup time with solo is relatively quick, right?
It's so good. I mean, I've had times where I've sat down and you set up, because again, like you don't need to really change anything other than reshuffle the decks, right? So if you play it and you just like got like super early, you're just like, well, that didn't work out. Scoop it, shuffle it, try it again.
Yeah.
Like unlike a board game where you have to like reset up all the things there, it's just a deck of cards really. So you just shuffle it, then move a few tokens around and just go at it again and just give it another shot. So I mean, I've had it where I've sat down and I've done like 3 or 4 sessions right in a row, just trying to find a build that I like, or to see what aspects or what strategies work really good against a certain villain, so I can kind of take that information when I play it again down the road at like harder difficulty.
Yeah, so. For sure. I don't usually sit down and play this game like full, say, quote unquote competitive soloing.
Just grinding, man. Always grinding.
No, I just kind of like, I'll always just kind of take like, I use it for tweaking my deck a little bit on my own time, rather than just sitting there and being like, okay, these are the changes I'm going to make for when I go play with my group, right? Like, I'm like, okay, I put Rhino down and I get him set up, because like the setup time's very quick solo. I've got my deck ready and I just kind of go through a couple turns, right? Boom, boom, boom. And I see, and I test that synergy that the cards that I've changed or swapped out, if they're working or if they're not working. So that's what I'm looking for. As soon as I'm seeing glitches or stuff there, I kind of I can reset very quickly, because like, you said, Corey, it's just quick, shuffle this, the piles back up, flip the card over, start again. Okay, let's go, make a quick change. So I can kind of work on my build very, and get some quote unquote like real playtime put in, rather than just theory crafted in my head. So that's how I use solo. I don't sit there and I'm not trying to win the game in solo. I'm just doing some live testing with it.
Yeah, it's like playing with bots, right? Yeah. You go in and you jump in, you're just trying to try out some builds. Yeah, but it is true, because some of the heroes have some really unique play styles, like Iron Man with assembling the armor before he gets ready to get going. Even some with, like, as I've found out, I just started playing Spider-Man again recently, which there was a long gap between I played Spider-Man last, and so I went back after not playing him in a while. I made a few mistakes, but then learning that he mostly wants to stay in hero mode the majority of the time. He very rarely wants to go to Peter Parker. Otherwise, you don't work out these little kinks and play mistakes, and you try to Spidey sense when you're in Peter Parker, or great responsibility while in Peter Parker, and the table gets really excited because they think you're saving the day, and then you're like, oh, just kidding, guys. I can't play this card right now. That bad thing's going to happen, and I can't stop it because I wasn't paying attention. So being able to get like those reps makes you just a better player with that hero, especially if you find one you really like, which can also be that thing in this game. Like maybe there's a hero that speaks to you, like he's one of your favorite heroes in the comics. Like you just really enjoy it, or you dig that play style, and so you can just try a bunch of like play to be really good with that hero, and that's like your thing. You come to the play group and you're like, I'm the Spider-Man player. I can play all these different builds of Spider-Man, but I know like his cards really well and how to play like his deck, and so that helps a lot when you go and play with new groups and everything.
So from that perspective, like I said, like there's a lot of game packed in this box. I'm loving it. Thank you guys for coming in. If there's any kind of wrap-up questions about the Corset and stuff like that, fire them off here in the last little bit, and we'll get to them. But we're pretty much ready to wrap up this kind of first impressions episode. So again, Tuesdays 9 o'clock. Eastern time is kind of what we're looking for. Join us. Keep it very interactive. Hammer us in the chat. Let's have these discussions.
Slay it on us.
Yeah. And let's kind of go through, and just love this game together. Next week, we're going to talk more about the builds that we're loving, combinations that we're, building our decks around. What aspects we're kind of playing, again, only within the core set. So that's kind of what the plan is for next Tuesday.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So get some more games this weekend. See if we can finally take down the scenario. I don't want to spoil it yet. I'll talk more about it next week. But the scenario that our group's been having some struggles with. So it'll be interesting to see after I talk about it if your groups have been having the same problem, or if you guys kind of had it figured out or know the tricks in order to be able to play through it really well.
Yeah, and I think that's what why is Cap so OP?
Dude, I don't know. I'm excited. I know Jameson's super pumped about Thor.
Yeah, I am super pumped about Thor.
It's just, it returns it to your hand. See? It's so clever. Okay, anyway. Anyway.
That's how the card comes back to you.
Yeah.
From your
that's right. It just flies up.
I'm actually thinking about buying like that big Thor hammer too, so I can have it on game night and just
nice.
After
Be great.
I shuffle my deck.
Yeah, then you can grab that treachery card and everyone gets really excited. Yeah. So
mine's always the obligation. I'm like, big money, no whammies. Oh, Corey, this one's for you, actually.
Yeah, right. Yeah, turns out you're really gonna like this.
Yeah, it turns out you didn't pay your rent, Spidey. Here you go.
Yeah, God, always swinging around town. So, any last minute questions come in, or?
Yeah. So, again, if we can publish our deck list before we go through it on Marvel. So there is a Marvel C
DB or something.
.com.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of like where people are hanging out and doing deck lists. We will post a lot of that kind of pre-show stuff through our Facebook or Twitter. So if you follow us on Facebook, we'll interact and throw some deck lists and stuff up there, and kind of prime for the next show. But good suggestion there, Alan. So thanks a bunch. Thanks guys for joining us. Like I said, I appreciate the people that kind of jump in here last minute.
That's awesome. Thank you.
We weren't really advertising when we're going live with this stuff, but so Tuesdays 9 o'clock is when you can catch us. Get in the discussions. Let's enjoy this game together, and let's see what comes. Thanks a bunch, all.
Yeah, thanks guys.